Hey everyone. So I did a YouTube poll on what you guys all wanted to see, and everybody seemed really excited to see an optics comparison. So today we'll be looking at the Holosun 507c versus the primary arms variant of the 507c with the ACSS Vulcan reticle. And then hopefully by seeing both reticles, you can see which one fits your needs best. Alright though, let's do it. So first off, this video is going to be a little bit different because we've done like 2, or is it 3? Videos on the 507c with all the variants and all the warranty and all that stuff already. So I'm not going to go into the unboxing because it comes with all the same stuff as the 507c that I showed you in all the previous videos, but if you're just dying for it, it's probably somewhere up here. Well, I suppose some of the contents do show you how to use the Vulcan reticle in the manual, but we'll just go over all that when we talk about the actual reticle. As I've shown you in the past, Primary Arms is known for making some of the most intuitive and advanced reticle systems on the market to turn that reticle itself into its own weapon system. I'm still hooked on their 2.5 to 10 Griffin mil scope that I reviewed. That reticle and scope combo is just absolutely heaven. I love that thing. And I'll put links to that 2.5 to 10 Griffin and all the optics I'm going to show you today down in the description. But the two optics we're reviewing today are basically like the exact same housing. These are both Holosun 507c X2s that use the same RMR mounting interface, have the same buttons and functions, along with the same side-loading 1632 battery tray. So the only real difference you're going to see in these two optics is the reticle. And it kind of answers that question of, why would you care about a different reticle and is it actually any better? Well, let's answer that question. And we'll begin that process by going over each of the reticles in detail, then move into some static testing of both reticles by seeing how each performs when in a standard centered shooting position. But in reality, you'd probably never be in that like perfect position outside of a shooting competition. So we'll also test dynamic and offhand shooting positions. And I think that test is going to be a lot more realistic because you have to react to a situation and you may not be in an ideal shooting position. And then finally, we'll discuss using the Vulcan as an offset red dot sight on a rifle and finish out with night vision use of the ACSS Vulcan. So there's a lot to take a look at, and I'm excited to see how each of the reticles perform. So let's start out by looking at the features of the reticle of the standard 507c X2. Looking at the 507c reticle itself, we see a 2 MOA center dot that is enclosed in a 32 MOA circle. So you have this precision 2 MOA dot or this super quick engagement circle. So I will say it doesn't really have like a solid reference point for like shooting at distance. I'd have to learn like some corner of some hash mark somewhere means some specific distance to me. And as I've shown you in the past, the 507c features 3 modes that can be changed from the forward plus button. That changes the optic from auto brightness to manual brightness, then the lockout mode. And the lockout mode basically locks whatever manual brightness you have set until you change the actual mode. And that's usually what I run my optics in like a medium brightness setting. Mostly because the auto mode can be a bit wonky when shooting from low light into bright light. But as we saw at SHOT Show, Holosun is adding a second light sensor to some of their next generation of optics to actually fix that problem in the future. Getting back to our optic though, you can also change the way the reticle behaves by holding down the minus button. This changes the reticle from the circle and dot to just the dot or just the circle. And I run the circle and the dot. I think it's just enough visual information to keep me on target, while not just having this tiny little dot that I'm trying to find. And I've been a huge fan of this reticle as I've used it shooting for ages on platforms like this 507c, the 512 we reviewed, and the 509T on our Staccato also. And I really like this reticle, but I'd likely only use it out to a distance of pretty much whatever my zero is set at. Alright, let's see how the Primary Arms 507c Vulcan compares. The first thing you'll notice that's different is the center dot has been replaced with the chevron target indicator. Now, some people hate this, and I think they're crazy. The chevron gives me both a precision tip and distance reference points on the chevron itself, as we see with the reference distances from various calibers in the manual. And it may not be a huge increase in precision, but it's going to be a whole lot better than just some random space below the dot. And the chevron as a precision aiming device has really grown on me the more I use it and understand what it's doing. And the other crazy thing you'll see on this reticle is that the ring is a ton larger now. The outer ring is no longer a 32 MOA ring used for quick target acquisition, but instead is a reference point to direct the user back to the position of the center reticle indicator. And people may think that this is designed this way to teach people how to use a red dot. And sure, it kind of does that, I suppose. But once you learn where the dot is for presentation, then you wouldn't even see the outer ring at all anyway. And I've actually trained to have the dot in position with my eyes closed, so I would never even see the ring. So I don't think it's really a training reticle or whatever these internet cheese farts seem to think. But what it does do is get you back on target super fast when doing some oddball shooting. I say oddball because everyone just shoots at a flat range. I should probably say realistic shooting, where you may be offhand or just angled over a Chips Ahoy display and you don't know from that position where the proper angle of the red dot should be in order to have your dot in your vision. But we'll test all that. Looking at the function of the ACSS Vulcan, we see the same features as we saw previously, where we could hold the plus button to cycle through the auto, manual, and lockout modes. By holding down the minus button, we can also make some changes to the reticle. And with the ACSS Vulcan, you can swap between the outer ring and chevron, or just the chevron. So if you're using the ACSS Vulcan as an offset red dot, maybe it's not far enough forward to be able to hide the circle, you could just change it and turn the actual outer circle off. A little bit of foreshadowing though, I like to leave it on as I found I was actually a little bit faster with the circle still on. Alright, so that's both reticles, how they're different, and how each one of them functions. Let's move into the tests next, and we'll move into a static position where we just shoot from a centered shooting position. And we're just going to be doing this with some dry fire testing, so what I'll do is I'll actually draw, and then once I have the reticle on target, we'll actually pull the trigger. It should be fairly simple. And just so you can see what I'm doing, I'm going to run the Safariland for our standard 507c and the Alien Gear Rapid Force for our primary arms ACSS Vulcan. In this configuration, I found both optics performed extremely well. The standard 507c had a nice bright center dot with the 32 MOA ring to give me a quick acquisition of the target. On the ACSS Vulcan, I actually never saw the outer ring in this configuration, as I'm drawing from a position I've done thousands of times. The center chevron was easy to pick up and place the tip on a target for increased precision over just the dot and circle of the standard 507c. But this is so unrealistic. It would be silly to think if there's a situation that's unfolding that I'd have time to just square up and just stand there. I just won't have that ability to have the perfect position and body alignment all the time. But even in these super simple positions, I still found myself preferring the actual ACSS Vulcan reticle due to the added precision it gave me. Alright though, let's get into some more dynamic shooting positions and try something a little more crazy. And again, we're just using dry fire, and I'll get into some more awkward shooting positions, and as before, I'll pull the trigger once I'm on target, and again, the Safariland is going to be our standard 507c, and then our Alien Gear Rapid Force will be our ACSS Vulcan. Here, I took the time to be as uncomfortable and oddly positioned as possible, using the red dot from offhand, laying on my side or my back, or working around barricade and debris. Here the standard 507c did alright, but it definitely highlighted some of my training shortfalls, as I would often be chasing the dot without knowing where I needed to go to adjust to get back on target. And this is definitely a humbling one if you haven't tried to go and find your dot in some more awkward shooting positions. Moving to the primary arms 507c with the ACSS Vulcan, I was surprised at just how useful the center ring becomes. I was still off in my initial presentation in the more awkward positions, but the outer ring allowed me to easily snap to center and be able to engage. I found I was using the center ring to recenter me almost instinctively instead of looking around to find the dot. I was really surprised by the increase I had in shooter competency. I didn't feel nearly as unprepared in those dynamic shooting positions as I did before, because it was much easier to actually get on center and make the shot. And it was easy even having not trained in those positions nearly enough. It's definitely its own little cheat code, and I definitely want to have the ACSS Vulcan on my EDC carry where those reactive or oddball shots would be the norm. But tell you what, let's do some more testing and let's see how it works out in a offset red dot rifle configuration. Now, I'm going to cheat a little and show the Holosun 507t version 2, but it uses the same reticle. On a rifle configuration, we see similarly that the dot and 32 MOA ring serve as good target identification with the target acquisition circle to engage extremely quickly. But as we said earlier, there's not really any distance markers unless you somehow learn that some weird part of the circle matched up to some random distance based on your load. And quick short range target acquisition I guess will be fine, but like if your long range optic went out and you use this as a backup, you'd have trouble going out any further than like 200 or 250 yards, hoping you had a smart zero. Switching to the ACSS Vulcan as an offset red dot, we see that the dot would likely not be far enough out to make the outer ring disappear when the chevron is centered. Now, as I mentioned, you can turn that outer ring off, but I actually found I was a good bit faster just leaving the circle up. I could just kind of rotate and it was easier to bring the whole circle and chevron into center. And then the ACSS Vulcan chevron gives you a significant increase in accuracy at those zero distances while also giving the shooter holdover indications at various distances. Yeah, I one-wrapped Velcroed that slide to the other offset. Don't judge me. So then in an offset configuration, you'd have the proper holdovers to go out to 300 yards easily. And in the offset rifle configuration, I still found that I preferred the ACSS Vulcan, as it gave me increased speed, accuracy, and engagement distance over the standard dot. And one other pro of note is actually night vision use, and I'll test this a little bit more when I actually get my PVS 14s from TNVC. But for now, you have to suffer through my super hot garbage NVGs, but even then you can see how much easier it is to locate the center dot by just tracking the ring. And this is really huge unless you actually see it for yourself, but the change in depth of field and some of the other nuances of night vision can really throw you off. So it was pretty interesting to see how the ring just pulled me back to center, even with night vision on. And that's all the tests then, so I have to say, even for as much as I love the 507c Holosun circle and dot reticle, I actually found I preferred the ACSS Vulcan in almost every way. And I was especially shocked at how much more effective I was at engaging targets from those dynamic positions. And I can tell you that's what that optic is designed for. Even with me just doing these silly tests, I feel way more confident in the Vulcan reticle over the standard circle and dot. As I understand it in real life, I may just be using an Oreo display as my shooting position and trying to take cover in whatever I have around me. No, stop. Don't take that merchandise that I suddenly care about for no good reason. Squat your ass, squared up position just isn't likely to happen. And I had an absolute blast today playing with the ACSS Vulcan, and I highly recommend it if you're on the fence as to which one to buy. But I'll put links to all the optics we've shown today down in the description also. We need to swap out the staccato, the 509T we have, for the 509T with the Vulcan. I like this a ton better. But I hope this video comparing the Holosun 507c versus the primary arms 507c with the ACSS Vulcan reticle was useful in your purchasing decisions. I want to say thanks to all of our Patreon supporters and all of our YouTube members. You guys make this great community that I love to be part of. And I want to say thanks to everybody that likes, comments, and subscribes. Comment down below which one you're going to get, the regular circle dot or that Vulcan reticle. All right, everyone, wash out. We need to swap out the 509T on the staccato to the one with the useful in your purchasing decisions. I want to say thanks to everybody that, and I can tell you that's what that optic is.